Go back home, kids.
Let's go!
You'll never escape!
Go! Presto, do something!
Where's Uni?
Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm Lord Pog and this is Lord Pog Gaming. You know, I've always said that I wanted to look into all facets of gaming, and my channel has definitely taken a weird turn as I took psychology for a year or so in college, community college, so take that for what it's worth, but hey, don't bash community college. If it wasn't for community college, we wouldn't have Troy and Achbed, right? Anyways, with that said, my channel has turned into this like commentary channel where I talk about psychological things and I use particular video game characters or situations or just franchises to better illustrate my point with. And whilst I like doing that, I thought I'd take a different tack today and just do kind of like a commentary in and of itself. And what I want to do it on is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I know that Wizards of the Coast has kind of beaten Dungeons and Dragons down into the ground pretty heavily here lately, leaving a lot of bad tastes in a lot of role player TTRPGers in general's mouths, and I can understand that. Me myself, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I love Dungeons and Dragons. It's one of my first loves. However, I don't play 5th edition. Nothing Wizards of the Coast is doing right now really affects me at all. I play 3.5, which in my opinion is the epitome of what TSR had in mind for Dungeons and Dragons. And the reason why I say that is because 3rd edition and 3.5 in respects were in a sweet spot during TSR's reign for what am I talking? It was in a unique position for TSR and Wizards of the Coast, as in TSR was about to sell the brand to Wizards, and Wizards hadn't quite came in yet and done what Wizards obviously does. You know, Wizards with the help of Hasbro, I guess. I mean, I'm not... Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what all the drama is. I know that Wizards and Hasbro are kind of trying to squeeze and milk money out of its fans, its players, and you know what? I'm not even going to get into all of that. There are plenty of channels that can talk about that. As for me, I'm going to just continue to play 3.5, and I highly recommend for you 5th edition players who have learned what D&D is about and have picked it up enough, you could switch to 3.5 now and see what it's all about and just see the insanity, the absolute broken insanity that is 3.5 edition. It's great. I love it. I actually run a campaign. I've been running it for 7 years with my friends who we're all called collectively them old school gamers. And I post it frequently. Well, I try to post them frequently, our sessions, on this channel here, but we actually haven't had a session in a minute, so, you know, life tends to get in the way. With that said, I'll leave a link here so you can start at episode 1 and continue. Of course, you're going to be coming into this campaign like kind of late in the game, but you know, it's whatever. I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in a different sense though. What I'd like to talk about, and this isn't going to be a how-to video. Like I said, there's plenty of channels that can tell you how to be a better dungeon master, how to run a better campaign, how to make your players happy. And I'm not really going to tell a story either. There are plenty of channels on here as well that will tell you like great uplifting stories or just neat little adventure snippets out of campaigns, different campaigns. You got your RPG horror stories. You got them all. That's not what I'm doing either. What I'm going to talk about is just a campaign in general. And I'm going to illustrate what makes a great campaign. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to make the campaign. I'm just going to tell you what I feel like makes a great campaign. What feels most like Dungeons and Dragons. And I hope you stick around and, you know, listen to it, watch it, and enjoy what I have to say here. If you do, I'd appreciate it if you left a like, share, and you subscribe. That would be great. Help my channel grow a little bit. Leave a comment in the section. That helps me get noticed by the algorithm, I guess. I don't know if that's actually true, or I don't really know how the algorithm works. I have no idea how YouTube really works, folks. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, right? I'm an older guy who normally is just a blue-collar worker who just one day decided, I'm going to take up YouTube and see what happens. So, and I do appreciate it. You know, I've got a lot of subscribers. I've made quite a few subscribers in a short amount of time for a channel like mine. So, I am totally blessed by all of you, and I appreciate it. With that said, let's talk about this Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to talk about what makes a great campaign by illustrating what the movie, the most recent movie, did wrong, and talk a little bit about what it did right. First of all, what it does right is it feels like Dungeons and Dragons, at least what modern Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons should feel like. It's got its characters. They showcase the owlbear. You have the shape-shifting druid. You have the wizard, the magic user. You have the paladin. You have the bard, who's charismatic and funny. You have your barbarian, and they go through. They thwart an evil lord's plans and the evil witches, or whatever she is, sorceress's plans, and they save the day. And there's a cool little cameo of the characters from the cartoon movie, or a cartoon show, not movie. Duh. The cartoon movie, so freak. The cartoon show, they make a cameo in it, and it's pretty good movie. I mean, for what it is, it's good. But where did it? And that's really all I got to say about it. Like, I'm not gonna do spoilers or anything about what I'm talking about here. I wouldn't say don't watch this movie. You can go watch it. You shouldn't be too disappointed. Like I said, it's not the greatest thing on the planet, but it's all right for what it is. It's all right for what it is. But is it true Dungeons and Dragons? Is it what if Gary Gygax, let me ask you this. If Gary Gygax were to watch this movie, would he say, that's my vision right there? That's what I had intended all along for this franchise? And one could argue, you could say, well, but Pog, who cares what Gary Gygax says? We have to move on, you know? It's 2023 now and all that stuff. Let me tell you, progression, you can progress backwards. You know, all progression means is moving forward, but which direction are you moving forward in? Because if you're turned around and you start walking, you're actually moving forward. So technically you can progress backwards too, because all progression means is walking forward in the direction you're facing. It is imperative that we don't lose some of the traditions that first established these things that we love, like Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I'm not going to sit here also and preach and say, you know, all this stuff, and there are plenty of channels that are talking about where Hollywood and where these games and all this stuff are failing. I'm not going to do that either. That's not what this is meant for. I'm just talking about certain traditions should be upheld, in my opinion, because of the fact that all tradition is a time tested thing that is usually approved. That's the thing about tradition. You can't have tradition unless it's made it through the ages and it's been tested and it's passed the tests. Does that mean we can't change? No, that doesn't mean we can't change, at least not a little bit. Fifth edition is a huge change from, like I said, I play 3.5. It's way more streamlined. It's easier, more accessible to pick up for new players and stuff. I appreciate it for what it's for, what it is. I appreciate it a lot. Fourth edition, no, but fifth edition, yeah. Fifth edition, if it wasn't for fifth edition, I don't think we'd have a Critical Role. And I know them guys have been playing for a while. I know Matt Mercer's been around for a long time. He's been around since like second edition and advanced Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. But if it wasn't for how accessible and streamlined fifth edition is, I don't think they could put on the show, the Critical Role cast could put on the show that they do, and it would be as understandable as it is for people who have never played to watch and comprehend what it is they're looking at. So yeah, I mean, we can change a little bit. I'm just saying don't lose certain traditions. Don't lose certain... There's a certain kind of grit, I want to say, that takes place, or that took place, I should say, in the original versions of Dungeons and Dragons, from first to AD&D to third and 3.5. There's a certain grittiness, a certain, oh, what should I say, je ne sais quoi, that Dungeons and Dragons used to have. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at like the 90s Dark Sun campaign and you'll see what I'm talking about. That swords and sandals and sorcery feel to it. And that is the interesting thing. That's going to segue into what I'm talking about here. Let's talk about the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. Like I said, you have all the characters are represented. You have the bard, you have the magic user, you have the druid shapeshifter, you have the barbarian, and then you have the paladin who's in there here and there, you know. One complaint I have is the fact that, and again, there will be slight spoilers, but I'm not going to go all out. But one of the complaints I have is the paladin's role in Dungeons and Dragons, the new movie. Just because you're a paladin doesn't mean you have to be against certain things that might come across as underhanded to higher society, I guess. You know, sometimes you can work above the law. I understand that there's such a thing as lawful good, right? All that means is that you're not going to kill unnecessarily to get the job done. But that doesn't mean that you won't assist in some things that maybe facets of the law wouldn't understand that you have to do to get the job done either. And so the paladin takes a back seat in this movie as a result of that, and I don't like that. In my campaign, I have a bard. His name is Android Frizen. He's a bard slash paladin. He's a cross-class paladin. And in 3.5, there's a book that allows you to make a paladin a prestige class, and so that's what we did. We made his paladin a prestige. We made his paladin a prestige class to go along with his bard. So, and he's a bard paladin. I mean, that right there should tell you something about his personality right there. It means he has all the charisma in the world, and if he can talk his way out of a fight, he will. He'd rather not kill you. But he has a higher sense of justice, and sometimes that justice requires him to do things that maybe the law won't understand that he needs to do to accomplish the greater good. And I believe that every paladin, regardless of their alignment, lawful good, lawful neutral, whatever, neutral good, you know, chaotic good, whatever, they can all uphold that. You don't have to follow that strict regiment of alignment in to such a degree that you make things almost unorganic. almost unorganic. Now, you could have something nifty going on where the paladin is kind of like arguing the whole time with the rest of the group, like, well, does it have to be this way? And they're like, yes, it does. And then he kind of reluctantly helps them, but in the end, he sees that his actions are accomplishing a lot, and yada, yada, yada. Boom, bang, bing. You have a great character that is in the movie more than just, what he's in. That's just a small complaint of what my real problem with this movie is the fact that, yes, it feels like Dungeons and Dragons. It's stylized like Dungeons and Dragons. It's got a lot of fan service to Dungeons and Dragons, but is it truly Dungeons and Dragons? And I'm going to say a little bit, a little bit, but it's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's D&D. It's Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro's D&D. But is it Dungeons and Dragons? No. If you want a truly organic Dungeons and Dragons experience in movie form, then you want to watch the original Dungeons and Dragons movies with Marlon Wayans. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Although Jeremy Irons really gives it away in that movie, man. With what he had to work with, he really gives it away. He hams it up in that. He has fun. But no, not that movie either. In fact, that movie's just, it's awful. It's just awful. It's the 4th edition of what we're talking about here. No. If you really want a truly unique Dungeons and Dragons experience in movie form, then I suggest you watch the 1984 movie Conan the Destroyer. Yes, Robert E. Howard wrote a series of books titled Conan the Destroyer, Conan the Barbarian, Conan of what is it, Aquila, I think is what it was called. A series of it, Conan the King. There's all kinds of Conan books out there. They take place in kind of like a Dark Sun D&D setting, swords and sandals situation, where magic is like a mystery, and sometimes there's science that explains it, and sometimes there just isn't. And you have Conan the Barbarian, who's dealing with traversing all of this with a lot of apprehension towards magic and a style to the man. He's not your typical good guy per se. He's a mercenary. In fact, he's a barbarian. If I were to put him into a class, I would say he's a barbarian cross-class thief, which is actually a good cross-class to have in Dungeons and Dragons. It is a possible cross-class if you follow the 3.5 edition rules. I don't really know what 5e offers for it, but I will say that in 3rd edition, a barbarian is strongest if he's not wearing really any armor at all, little to no armor at all. And same thing really with the thief, although the thief is good still wearing like leather armor, at least leather armor. So if you cross-class the barbarian and you cross-class him to thief and then you put leather armor on him, you're not really hurting the barbarian at all at that point. So now you basically got a thief who can wreck your day if he gets caught. Basically, you can be as quiet as you like, but should you happen to roll low, should the D&D gods not smile upon thy hand as you roll them bones, and you get a 1 or just crap, I don't necessarily look at a natural 1 as an ultimate fail on a skill check, but you roll low enough that you fail, and so you get caught. Well, you're a barbarian also, so you can at least, smash some skulls and get out anyways, and that's what the beauty of Conan the Barbarian, that's the beauty of his character. And that is actually the beauty of this movie, Conan the Destroyer. It is the sequel to Conan the Barbarian, the original Conan the Barbarian, which is the first movie, I guess, so duh. But Conan the Barbarian, which was a rated R movie, Conan the Barbarian was. We're not going to talk much about that because as far as D&D scenarios go, that one feels more just like a DM playing Dungeons and Dragons one-on-one with his player. His player is Conan the Barbarian, and then like Conan is just meeting up with all of the DM's DMPCs. So For those of you who don't know a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, because I know I got a variety of people on here from time to time, an NPC is non-playable character. You play video games, you know what a non-playable character is. So a DM NPC is just your dungeon master's non-playable character. So basically a non-playable character who travels around with the party and is kind of like the dungeon master's way of playing Dungeons and Dragons with the group while still being the DM. And it can work. It does work. I've known some dungeon masters who can really pull it off really well and it doesn't affect anything, and then there are just some that they shouldn't do it at all. I myself dabble in and out a little bit. I'll sometimes introduce a DM NPC to the party, but they never stay long. I always take them out because it's, in my opinion, that the player should always shine. So, anyways, I lost my train of thought there. So Conan, the original Conan the Barbarian was the first movie, and it is rated R, and it's pretty rated R. It's pretty rated R. It's a good flick, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But if you get a chance, check that movie out if you haven't. We're going to talk about its sequel, Conan the Destroyer, which is PG, a considerable drop, a considerable drop in the rating system, right? It's cleaned up a little bit. In those days, though, in 1984, PG meant PG. You know, now Toy Story is rated PG. Now anything Disney puts out is rated PG, right? But back in those days, PG was still PG. So there's still some levels of brutality in this movie and some content that you don't necessarily want your young ones watching if you got young ones. But with that said, Conan the Destroyer, the sequel, the 1984 sequel to Conan the Barbarian, that is, in my opinion, a more truly unique D&D viewing experience. It has all the hallmarks of a D&D campaign, and we're going to go over it real fast, and I'm going to plead my case to you, and when it's all said and done, I'm going to go as far as to say that this movie, when it first came out, was not that popular. It really didn't do as well as like the first movie, Conan the Barbarian, did, and for good reason for its time. Let me preface all this by saying I'm not going to spoil the movie, all right? It's in my opinion that you should go out, after I talk about what this movie has to offer, you should go out and find this movie and watch it. I believe it's on Netflix right now, but it might not be anymore. Go look on Tubi. Just scour the internet. Do your thing. All right? We're on the internet. You can find it. I believe in you. I really do. I believe in you guys. You've got the power. You've got the touch. You've got the power. All right. Okay. Anyways. So Conan the Destroyer has all the hallmarks of what a great D&D campaign should be. Okay, it's got Conan, you could say the main character, which already kind of gives you the main character vibes of it. But it's a movie, so it kind of has to work that way. I mean, let's face it, Tanis Half-Elven in the original Dragonlance series, he was the main character. Sure, there was a lot of cool characters around him. Take Raistlin, take Caramon, take Flint, take Tasselhoff, take them all. Goldmoon, take them all. You know, they're all great. Take my boy Stern Brightblade. I mean, my favorite. He is my absolute favorite, but not the main character. Tanis Half-Elven is the main character. The same sort of thing with Conan, right? He's the main character, but he's not necessarily the only character, and that's one of the key difference between Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. That's one of the key differences in these movies, right? Between these two movies. So you got Conan the Barbarian, who's a cross class of a barbarian and thief. Then you've got his little helper Malik, who's just a thief. He's just your regular thief. You know, he's got skill. He's there mainly for comedy relief. And if I gotta say anything, he'd probably be my biggest complaint. I really think they should have had the guy from the first movie and I'm about to butcher his name really bad, but it's the best I got. His name was Sobotai. They should have had him return for the movie and be Conan's little thief partner. They didn't. I really don't know why. They didn't, and that's fine. I mean, all in all, it doesn't really make or break the movie, but they maybe they should have. That's all I'm gonna say. Maybe they should have. Anyway, so you got Malik, the thief partner of Conan. So he's just a thief. You know, plain and simple thief. Then you've also got in the party who will eventually come around. You got Akiro, the wizard or sorcerer. In the movie, they call him a wizard, but he's more like a sorcerer because you never see him open up a book. He calls upon his magic all from within. You know, it's not the crazy kind of magic. He's not like doing magic missiles or anything like that. It's more like a force of will. It's really cool the way they represent magic in Conan. In these movies, especially because of the way that they do it. Like, it's not, it almost leaves it open for interpretation. Like, is he really performing? Excuse me, I keep hiccuping. Is he, you got to ask yourself, is he really performing magic, or is it like or is it just circumstance and people are saying, oh, that's magic, oh, it's got to be magic, you know? There is, in my opinion, there's times where it could just be circumstance, and I think there's times where it's actually just really magic. I think Akiro is capable of really calling upon forces beyond and accomplishing some things, and there's a really cool like magic duel that happens in this movie. There's some cool magic that just happens in this movie. You know, like I said, there's times where it seems like, oh, well, it could be circumstance, and then there's times where it seems like, oh, well, I guess it really is magic. Let me tell you, that it leaves no room for doubt when it's really magic. I think. And then again, the way Robert Howard wrote those books, he kind of went through at times and had Conan uncover things that was like, oh, you thought this was actual magic, and then it just turns out, you know, to be like an incense burner that's full of drugs that's getting you, that's that is changing the way you perceive reality in your mind, and that incense that's burning is doing that, and so you're hallucinating and things like that. So, you know, you keep that in mind. It's possible that it's not really magic at all, but I mean, in my opinion, it is. There's just times where it is. It's just magic. So you have the wizard sorcerer Akiro, and then you get to the group. Also, you get Zula, and Zula's a really cool character. She is played by Grace Jones, who was kind of like a character actress in her day. She was in a James Bond movie, for instance. She's been in a lot of stuff. She was in a vampire movie called Vamp. She's been in a lot of stuff in her day. Like I said, she was a character actress. Zula is a really cool character. She follows the real old school Dungeons and Dragons archetype of acrobat. And if you've ever watched the cartoon, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say acrobat. You know, the Amazonian looking women with the pole vaults and the staffs, and they're able to like pole vault and drop kick a dude and just do all this crazy stuff with their bow staff like they're Donatello. Zula encompasses that character, and that's what I love about that character, right, is the fact that she's not even representing like a more modern, like, not even, because there's no acrobat in 3.5. There's no acrobat class or prestige class even in 3.5. That is going back to old school D&D, and she is an old school D&D kind of class, and she is just wild, man. She's just wild. Fiercely loyal to Conan for good reasons, and she like I said, you got to see the movie and just see what she does. The things that she does, and the facial expression she gets, and the certain amount of glee she takes, and just watching her fight with that bow staff, and yeah, it's really good. And her like not, I don't want to spoil the movie too much, but there's like a moment when she's talking to the MacGuffin character, this princess, right? She's talking to her about, how to attract a man. Because the princess, she falls in love with Conan, right? And she wants to get his attention. And Conan, Conan, I'm not going to say he's a prude. I mean, in the books, the man is known for loving women, doing his thing. We'll put it like that. But he's not actually in love. There's only one woman he's in love with, and that's Valeria, and that's a whole long story. And I suggest you watch the first movie to get that story. But so he doesn't necessarily just go around, hitting on women and putting himself out there either. He doesn't really shoot his shot a whole lot at the opposite sex. But this girl, the princess, who her name is Princess Gehenna, or Jenna. I think it's Jenna. She's talking to Zula about how to get Conan's attention, and she doesn't just come out and say how to get Conan's attention, but she just wants to know because Zula's an experienced woman, and Jenna's not. And and Zula just tells her, yeah, grab him and take him. And it just cracks me up, man. Like Zula is just wild. You grab him, take him. Like she's just a wild child, man. Great character in this movie. And then you have the princess, Jenna, who is, she's the MacGuffin character. She's the one that you're supposed to be escorting and protecting, just like in any D&D campaign. She doesn't really have any ability to assist in a fight. In any combat situation, she can't necessarily assist you at all. But when she gets to where you're taking her, she's going to show a power that she has, or an ability, or yada yada yada. She's going to be able to do something that furthers along the story that nobody else would be able to do, and it's going to show that she's got some kind of great ability locked inside her. And she's accompanied by, believe it or not, Wilt Chamberlain, who plays a fighter basically named Bombata. And Bombata's a great character too. Wilt Chamberlain, if you're not familiar with Wilt Chamberlain, let me tell you, he was a basketball player back in the day, and I can't talk too much about him because it's I don't want to get flagged by YouTube. Let's just say this man led quite the lifestyle, and we'll leave it at that. If you want to know more about Wilt Chamberlain, you'll just have to Google him yourself. But he was a popular basketball player, and while he was alive, he lived like a king, and he pretty much went out like one too. So that R.I.P. Wilt Chamberlain. Bombata was a great character, and yeah, he's an escort. He's the fighter character of the group. Big, tall. I mean, the man is taller than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a small guy. I actually got a chance to, just to go on a side tangent here, I got a chance to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger when I was a kid. When I was living in Cheyenne, Wyoming, he was going around the country promoting his "I'm going to pump you up," thing. Basically, what he was wanting to do was he was wanting to promote exercise and healthy living and weightlifting and just clean lifestyles. And he was trying to reach out this to like particularly like smaller children, younger kids, not so much adults, but teenagers and middle schoolers and stuff like that. And he came and spoke at the Capitol, which the Capitol sits in a park, and I kid you not, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the Capitol, which is the capital of Wyoming, the Capitol building sits in a park that is called Lincoln Park. I kid you not. The park that the Capitol sits in Cheyenne, Wyoming, is Lincoln Park. The Capitol building, let me say it to you one more time in case you didn't catch it. Let me tell you. The Capitol building sits in Lincoln Park. And so I'm standing in Lincoln Park, listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger talk, And the man is just massive. There were hundreds of people there, like thousands of people there, and you could still see him over everybody. I mean, the man is massive, and Wilt Chamberlain dwarfs him. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger's like the man. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I wasn't right up to him. I had to have been, if this was a concert, I'd have been probably like seven or six rows back. You know, I wasn't up in the nosebleed section. I would have been down on the ground floor, but I would have been like 7 or 6 rows back. And I didn't even have to get on my dad's shoulders or anything, because I was just in grade school then. I was just a little guy. I didn't have to get on my dad's shoulders or anything. I could see him perfectly over the adults that were standing in front of me. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was standing on a stage, but it wasn't like a concert stage. He wasn't just elevated all crazy high, you know. Just think of like a regular podium, and you're in the park, and I could still see his whole top half. That's how tall the man was, and he's just wide. He was larger than life, and to watch him stand next to Wilt Chamberlain and see just how much Wilt Chamberlain dwarfs him in that movie blows my mind, because I have something to work with in my mind. I know how big Arnold Schwarzenegger is, which means Wilt Chamberlain is just a freak of nature. And he plays the fighter character in that movie, in Conan the Destroyer. So now we have our full party. We have Conan, the barbarian / thief. We have Bambata, the fighter. We have Zula, the acrobat. We have Akiro, the sorcerer, wizard, quote, air quotes. And you have Malik, the thief. That's a full party right there. Now, the difference between why this is the more unique D&D experience as opposed to, say, the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, is because of the way they use their characters, the way they use their party. No one goes to waste, and no one's made to actually feel stupid, necessarily. You know, nobody really is. Everybody plays a role and does a part, and nobody's ever really put down. Now, again, Malik he's looked at as a joke. He's looked at as a comic relief character, but he's never actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Nobody is ever made stronger by making him look weaker. Case in point, there is no point in having Chris Pine's character never engage in battle, be the plan maker, and then be talked down to for it. If that's what you want him to do, then all the plans he makes, even, and I'm not saying he needs to be like a Mary Sue, where his plans always come through. No, what I'm saying is even if one of his plans falls through, then he needs to be such a quick thinker and so light on his feet that he is capable of creating an exit strategy right then and there. He can come up with a plan all the way from plans A to plan Z on the spot. No problem. You know, that's what I'm saying. Malik, he's just treated as kind of goofy. He is the weakest character in the group. So it's not like but he still, in that movie, you still see him every once in a while run in and actually do a sneak attack and actually take down enemies as a result of it. And they are sneak attacks. They are sneak attacks that he does. That's one good case in point of using your characters correctly to create a unique D&D experience on film. Another good case in point is what I was talking about with Akiro the Wizard. He's capable of reading magic scripts, old languages. He can perform magic. There's a cool duel at one point in time in the movie with him where it showcases what he can do. You got Zula, and Zula's a great character. Again, Zula is a combat-oriented character who's agile. She's not as strong, but she's fierce. and pretty savage, and you get to see her do that at times. There is a point in that movie where she gets utilized to such a degree that it's just like one of the greatest shots of the whole movie, and I wish I could talk about it more, but go watch this movie and you'll know what I'm talking about. They really showcase what Zula can do in this movie. And there's this one scene where she just completely, what she contributes to is to the party is second to none in this movie. It's a great shot, and she really comes through. They all come through. That's the whole point. Bombada, he's great. He's almost Conan's equal in combat ability. Like that's the thing about Bombada. He's great backup. And he really provides a certain aspect to any D&D campaign without spoiling the movie. What he provides in this movie, what he would provide in an actual D&D campaign, is one of those scenarios where it's like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me right now? And you just and you just love it. You know, it's just great. And like I said, he's his ability is comparable to Conan's. He's just as every bit of a good warrior. He's big, larger than Conan, and yeah, it's great. And then there's Conan. So what? And we all know Conan. I mean, if you don't know what Conan's bringing to the table, then I don't know where you've been. I don't know where you've been. But Conan, let's do a brief history on Conan. Conan was an orphan raised to fight and this is going by these movie standards. The books are a little different, but basically Conan was taught how to fight. He's a Sumerian, and he was taught combat a little bit more. So for being a barbarian, he's actually a lot more martial. You know, you can almost say he's triple classed. You could say that he is a barbarian, cross-class fighter, cross-class thief, really, because he may be a barbarian. And the reason why I think he's a barbarian, because he can still go into that barbarian rage where he does like crazy feats of strength and just seems like his whole constitution is just buffed out of this world now. He's just tanking hits. But his fighting prowess isn't savage. It's actually really honed. And like I said, he sneaks around. He's a thief. He's a professional thief, and he's light on his feet. He knows how to be quiet. As big as he is, he's like a shadow. So what makes this movie, other than just this, other than me just talking about the party in general, what makes this a good D&D movie? What makes this more unique to D&D as opposed to the movie that's out? Well, it has everything. It has all the hallmarks of a D&D movie, of a D&D campaign. You've got Queen Taramis, I don't know, I'm butchering the name, but yeah, Queen Taramis, who she's the movie. Okay, I'm not trying to spoil it, but the movie doesn't really leave room for error when you know right off the bat that she's the big bad. She's the villain of the movie. But she's also, like any good D&D campaign, see, the difference between this and a D&D campaign, and it's even going to be like this whenever you translate this to film, is you're going to know who the big bad is. You know, most of the time, unless the movie purposely goes out of its way to trick you, you kind of will know who the big bad is. But as opposed to in a campaign, where in the campaign you can take a mission from somebody and not know that you're actually helping the villain. And that's what's interesting about this movie, is that Conan doesn't just help this Queen Taramis thinking, oh yeah, you know, she's evil, but I'm going to do what she asks for. No, he thinks, you know, he thinks what she's trying to do for him is okay, and he just needs to get a job done for her, and she's gonna hook him up. He's not thinking one way or the other. I mean, you know, she's royalty and he's not, so he's just kind of like, get bent. But but he is. But he doesn't necessarily hate her, and he doesn't necessarily think what she's doing is necessarily evil either. That's the thing. but she is. She's the big bad. So you're taking a job from somebody who you don't know is the big bad of the campaign yet. You don't realize that they're the catalyst for everything that's about to happen. And then as you go along, the movie starts with just Conan, Malik, Princess Jenna, and Bombada. And then you pick up the other two characters along the way. You pick up Akiro the Wizard and Zula, which is, I mean, that is a unique take other than you meet in the tavern, or you all have come to answer the call of your lord, or whatever, you know. This is an interesting way of bringing the party together now, which is a unique way of doing that. Instead of just introducing all your players at once, you introduce a few here, get the story rolling, and then you introduce this player, then you introduce that player, and now you have a whole team. And basically, this movie has everything you would expect out of a campaign setting. It's got an evil queen, it's got your MacGuffin princess that you have to escort to protect, it's got an evil god, an evil dark god, it's got evil sorcerers, it's got monsters, it's got fights. I mean, it's got all kinds of fights, from anything from like soldiers to cannibals to beasts. It's got everything in this movie that you could ask for in a campaign, and nothing, like I said, nothing and no one goes to waste. It's not like you get Conan and then he just handles everything all the time and everybody's there just for window dressing, you know. No, that's not it at all. Everybody gets showcased in their own way. Maybe some a little bit more than others, but everybody usually has something to say, you know. If something weird and mystical happens, you'll see Akiro come out of the blue and kind of explain it and be like, oh, it was this, you know, oh, it was this. And it's like, oh, cool, you know. Like I said, Malik, he's known for getting into tight places and doing things. Zula's good backup for Conan and Bombata. And Princess Jenna, she's getting herself, you know, in trouble from time to time, but in the end, she even does what her purpose is, and she shows that she is the MacGuffin, right? It's a good movie, and it even by today's standards, you know, one of the reasons I brought up people complaining about the way Hollywood is doing things right now, and the quote unquote the message, as Critical Drinker likes to call it, and the agenda that Nerdrotic calls it, and just all that stuff. I'm not saying that those guys are wrong, and I'm not trying to get into all that, but what I will say is that this movie really holds up even by today's standards. All right? And just follow me here and understand that I'm not trying to insult anyone, but you do have a strong, diverse woman in Zula who, like I said, she's strong and she's diverse. Same thing with Akiro. Same thing with Bombata. You have three diverse people who hold their own and do a good job, and it's completely organic. It holds up. I mean, it does a good job at showing what a good diverse cast in a movie can do without harping on the fact that it's a diverse cast. Nobody ever mentions the diversity in this movie, not once. And that's, if you're going to have a diverse, all I'm saying is if you're going to have a diverse cast, that's the way you should do it. Just make it organic. You know, give it a good reason. There's a reason, you know, that these people are diverse the way that they are, right? The fact that these particular characters, Akiro, Zula, and Bombata, are the diverse people. Because they, from where they come from and where they hail from, this movie is taking place in a time where recorded history wasn't a common thing, but you knew regions and you knew, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Akiro comes from here, yeah, that makes complete sense, and so on and so forth. All of it makes complete sense. And nobody has to make Conan look bad to look strong for themselves. Granted, when it all comes down to it, most of the time Conan ends up being the one to deliver the kill shots in most fights and this and that, but he's Conan. I mean, yeah, he should be the one doing that. He really should. But he never makes anybody feel like they're less than him either. he respects every single one of them. Case in point, and not to ruin the movie again, but I just want to point this out. Akiro's in the first Conan movie. In Conan the Barbarian, Akiro's in it also. So Conan knows Akiro. And when Conan finds out that what he's dealing with is magic, that there's going to be magical dangers on this mission, he sidetracks the group and starts heading for where Akiro is. And the princess, she's a princess, and she's real sheltered, and she just doesn't understand, how to interact with people quite well yet. And she's telling Conan, I'm the leader, we do what I say. And he tells her, well, we'll get there, but there's gonna be magic. you know there's magical dangers on this mission. We need magic to fight magic. And he knows Akiro. He goes after Akiro because he respects Akiro's ability. That is chef's kiss right there. That is perfect setup for each character, and it's like that for every character in the movie. Every character has a certain setup where you get to know them in such a short time. Each introduction, you feel like you know their backstory by the time they're done being introduced, and they get showcased throughout the rest of the movie, and they just all work so well together. And in when it's all said and done, and I'm not going to ruin the movie or anything, but when it's all said and done, each one of them, Akiro, Zula, Malik, those three in particular, they each, before it's all said and done, they respect Conan, and he respects them to such an extent that before they make decisions that are going to greatly influence some things, they look to him first to see if he approves. And because Conan believes so much in them, he gives them the nod, like, yes, I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's just, it's just such a great movie. And like I said, it didn't do really well when it first came out, when it was originally released, and part of that is because the original Conan the Barbarian was rated R, so people were expecting that more darker, grittier storyline. James Earl Jones in Conan the Barbarian, when he's playing Thazadun, I believe is his name. He gives such a great performance, man. I mean, like, the way he talks, it's so condescending. The fact that he voiced both Darth Vader and played this character, and they're neither one of them are alike, but yet both are so menacing in their own way. Oh, it's so good. But it was a darker, more grittier, more mature and adult movie that I guess people weren't really ready for a Conan the Destroyer movie that kind of lightened the mood a little bit while still maintaining quite a bit of the violence that takes place in it, but cutting out more of the mature themes and yes, and in the original movie there is nudity. So in this movie there is not. So it is safe for kids, if you don't mind some violence. Not even the language is really all that bad. So there you go. Conan the Destroyer really does a better job at capturing what a unique D&D experience should be like. Because, to reiterate, I guess, it captures the D&D vibe because it introduces characters, introduces a mission. Those characters go on that mission. Not a single character is wasted, and they all work together to accomplish the mission. And by the end of the movie, mission accomplished. And each character, what they're about. Not just the main character, and nobody has to feel smaller than the other to get it done. It is an absolute, by Dungeons and Dragons standards, it's a work of art. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it is a work of art as far as Dungeons and Dragons goes. And I just wish that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro could look at things like this and say, that's really what D&D is about. It's not about a bunch of little funny quibs and one-liners and this and that and checking boxes, if you will. It is about, and mind you, the new D&D movie's not terrible. I don't hate it. And like I said, yeah, watch it. It's not terrible. It's okay. But is it Dungeons and Dragons, or is it just, D&D? And that's the point I'm trying to make here. Conan the Destroyer is Dungeons and Dragons. It is what men like Gary Gygax had in mind when envisioning a world where people could come together and play. It is Robert E. Howard's lifeblood poured onto paper and then transitioned into film. I highly recommend watching the movie and then come back and tell me what you think. Am I off base here? Really? Am I just off base? Or am I right? I mean, is it really a better Dungeons and Dragons experience than what we've got on film so far? And it didn't even mean to be. That's all I got for today. I don't really know how long this video ran. I feel like this is probably going to be my longest one yet. I really appreciate you sticking it through till the very end. If you made it all the way to the end, I just want you all to know that I love you and you're a blessing to me. Like, share, and subscribe. My channel is growing and I feel like I've accomplished a lot. You get those people who just blow up quick and good for them. And then you get those people who start out and they, it takes them forever to even start getting to where I'm at now. And so I feel like I'm just kind of in that middle ground right here. And I just really appreciate it, you guys, for at least getting me in the middle, making me a nice middle-class citizen here on YouTube. I just really appreciate it, y'all. I love you all to death. You guys are a huge blessing to me. If I could blow up and do this full time, I would. I really would. I wouldn't mind doing that. It would be a nice little retirement for me because what I do normally, I break my back. So I love y'all. I love you all to death. With that said, y'all come back now. You hear?
In an age when only the strongest survived, and only the ruthless triumphed, only one name became a legend. Conan the Destroyer. In his first adventure, he fought alone.
It is written that a woman child must make a perilous journey. I want you to take her on that journey.
Now, he joins a wizard.
What are they going to do?
Have lunch.
A warrior.
There are 6 of them against her.
1, 2, 3.
A renegade.
I think you're right.
And a princess. Together, they are sent by a treacherous queen across the lands of hostile kingdoms to solve the mystery of an ancient race and seek the power of a phantom city.
You're afraid of magic.
When it comes from evil,
This will.
come anyway.
The Horn of Dagoth, destroyer of worlds.
The god will live again. Enough talk.
If they cannot seize the horn in time, the world will be plunged into eternal darkness. Grace Jones, Wilt Chamberlain, Mako, Sarah Douglas, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan the Destroyer. The all-new adventures of the most powerful legend of them all.